or on your TV, I would take this opportunity to mention that the agenda and all reports are available on the city website, which may make it easier for you to follow along with our meeting. I'll now call the meeting to order and state that all members of council are present. I am here at City Hall along with Councillor Culhane, and all members are present electronically. I will be declaring a conflict on an item on today's agenda, and Councillor Culhane, as the Mayor of the month for June, will assume the chair for that portion of the meeting. Earlier this afternoon at 1 o'clock, council met in closed session to discuss the following items, and they are listed on the front page of the agenda for anyone's attention or anyone's interest. We will ask the Director of Corporate Services and City Clerk to lead us in a moment of reflection.
May we be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. Help us to be concerned only for what will promote good government. May we bring to our council chambers minds that think and hearts that feel, always having respect for others, so that we may serve the people of our city in a helpful manner and for the good of all.
Thank you very much. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Do I have any disclosures of pecuniary interest? And so I see that she has just stepped aside, but nope, there she is. Councillor McCaw.
Sorry, yes, I do have one. Sorry. It will be on the restaurant patios. Same as yours, I think.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else? So I have a conflict on item 8A2, dealing with the delegation of approval for encroachment agreements and waiving of application fees for downtown patios. I own a business with my own patio, and so therefore I will be refraining from participating in that portion, and Councillor Culhane will take the chair. Reading and confirmation of minutes of the regular council meeting minutes of May 25th, 2020, and the regular in-camera meeting minutes of May 25th, 2020. Can I get a motion to get this on the floor? Moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Millette. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Correspondence, and I have a couple other items I'll add under correspondence, but first let's deal with item 7.1, which is a letter from the Downtown District Business Improvement Association. The resolution is that the June 2nd, 2020 letter from the Downtown District Business Improvement Association containing a summer proposal, al fresco on front, and a budget for council's consideration be received. Moved by Councillor Sanderson and Councillor Williams, and with the consent of Councillor Sanderson and Williams, I would like to add to that motion and that the June 2nd, 2020 letter from the Downtown District BIA containing a summer proposal be received and then referred to the Finance Committee for consideration in the context of the 2020 budget deliberations, and that $25,000 be approved from the Downtown District's BIA summer proposal, al fresco on the front, from previously allocated funds from municipal accommodation tax funding in 2019. Councillor Sanderson, are you good with that change to it?
Just a question. So yes, I am, okay. But a question, does that provide sufficient time for them to enable their plan? Because it looked to me like they wanted to start the plan at the end of June, and we're not going to be into operating budget finalization until the first week in July.
Sure. In conversations with them last week, this will allow them to begin the purchase of the items that are essential for the project, and then the further consideration of the additional items above the 25,000. They're able to wait until we make our decisions on July the 6th.
Okay, good. I support that.
Okay, Councillor Williams, you seconded. Are you good with that addition?
Yes, I am. I know that just like a lot of other areas in Belleville, downtown really wants and needs to get some things going. And this plan is fantastic. I have to compliment Mary Jo and Chair Catherine Brown for putting something together. And the board has met and discussed this and wholeheartedly supports it, but also understanding on council that we only have so much money. We don't even really know the money we have to deal with. I think it is prudent, and thank you, Your Worship, I know, for working with Finance and Carol and finding that we did have some mat to use, and I think that's appropriate. So I think this is going to get them going, and hopefully we'll see them very successful here shortly.
Okay, so just because I think I bungled that a little bit, just to make sure it's clear. So the motion that we have on the floor is that the June 2nd, 2020 letter from the Downtown District BIA containing a summer proposal al fresco on front and budget for council's consideration be received and referred to the Finance Committee for consideration in the context of the 2020 budget deliberations, and that $25,000 be approved for the Downtown District's BIA summer proposal from previously allocated funds from MAT tax funding in 2019. So that's the resolution. Anyone else have any items they like to say, discussion? Councillor Carr, if you want to activate your microphone, go ahead. Sir.
Thank you. On the second page, they outline what they're asking for, and it also includes some waiving of food trucks, as well as use of city resources. Does that get captured in your motion or your amendment?
Thank you, Councillor Carr. It does. Some of those resources were previously approved by the grant committee or were recommended to council. Council's approved them already. And so there'll be some work done to calculate and come back. But when we are able to vote on this in its finality on July the 6th, everything will be captured and tidied up so that it'll be all correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else like to say anything on this? Councillor Sanderson, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So it's a very well considered proposal, and hopefully it'll give a boost to the downtown. But the letter touches on a larger issue, and that's the economic health of the downtown corridor. So prior to COVID, we had approximately 14 vacant properties, and over the last 8 weeks, sorry, we would have to add, according to the letter, another 3 retail stores and 4 restaurants. So we really have a critical need for a plan to sort of reoccupy the downtown corridor. And for me, that type of opportunity for economic growth sort of falls under the umbrella of the Economic Development and Destination Committee. And so it's my belief that that committee should be at the forefront of what I describe as sort of the business reoccupation of the downtown corridor. So the draft plan that came to council back in January sort of didn't touch on this aspect, and I think it's fairly critical. Prior to COVID, I had sort of discussed this in general terms with the manager of economic and strategic initiatives, Karen Post, as well as some of the members on the EDDC committee. And basically, I think there's a pressing need to sort of drive the business reoccupation of the downtown corridor. And certainly the city and the BDIA and local businesses have and continue to invest in the downtown corridor, but without a sort of overarching plan with some ownership and some accountability for a reoccupation, I think the vacancy rate is almost certainly going to get worse before it gets better. So when the, I guess in summation, so when the revised EDDC plan comes back to council, it's my opinion that it must include sort of the business reoccupation of that downtown corridor as part of their mandate. And so I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Williams, do you want to activate your microphone? Go ahead.
Thank you very much, and through your worship. So just to give an update, and I think that's very important, what Councillor Sanderson is speaking about, and it's across the whole city, not just downtown. There's so many different aspects. Of course, we had some announcements just under an hour ago on some reopenings, which are great to hear. Just an update, EDDC is meeting this Thursday, and part of that, and Karen posted on the line if we want to hear some more, but there is a COVID reactivation strategy that staff are presenting. Second part of an agenda item on that is already looking at retail and downtown retail and revitalization, as well as economic development policies. Now, the strategic plan that had been developed by that committee, and his worship has assured us as soon as we're back in person, that's to come back to the agenda. There is time to tweak that. However, the basis of most of it, whether that's labor force development and economic development as a whole, and then tourism destination development strategies, are mostly intact, and I would argue needed more than ever. But certainly when we get into that committee meeting this Thursday, we'll be dealing with a swath of different areas which are hard hit right now, downtown absolutely being one of them. And I know that hearing from businesses across the whole city, there's just so many. And I see Councillor Kelly will probably add to that discussion as well. But we look forward to getting back to work very shortly here.
All right, thank you. Councillor Kelly, I want to activate your microphone. You just need to activate your mic. Is there that
Sorry,
little?
I apologize. It was frozen there, my
Okay.
little mouse. But through you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to kind of touch on a couple of things. I know last week I was at on a Zoom meeting, conference call with the mayor. It was a task force working, and the DBI Downtown District was a part of the conversation, along with the Bay of Quinte Regional Marketing Board, Doug Stevenson, and we need a strong downtown. And thanks to Mary Jo for sending us that email, really lays it out nicely for us. And they've got a long struggle ahead, and we know the economic and social role that the downtown has in every community here in the country. We need a strong downtown, and it's part of our image. And we know all the successful campaigns that they had last summer and into the fall, but that's not happening with COVID-19. So we have to support the downtown, and I think Thursday we'll know more with the economic meeting, and the task force spoke last week. So good things. People are taking note, and lots of good ideas and support for the downtown district.
Okay. Anyone else? Any comments? Councillor Thompson, I think I see. Yeah, if you want to activate your microphone, go ahead, sir.
I'm speaking. You know, I happen to work, so it's a bit of a conflict here, but I know the positivity thoughts downtown and the direction that the merchants are going is they're really very positive with the struggles they've had and where they're going. I think if we can do some concentration of trying to get some economic movement, I think it'll be a benefit when we can, you know, get those big events coming back downtown. Certainly may not be this summer, but maybe this fall. But the merchants are looking forward to things coming back to order. And I think we have a vibrant downtown, and the merchants are very dedicated and want to be downtown. And I think, and I just know that the people are starting to come back downtown, and there's a positive feed there, but we need to make sure that everybody work together and make sure, because without a downtown, we have no town.
All right. Anyone else on this? Yeah, no, so I'm obviously going to support this as well. And I want to thank the BDIA for the work they've done putting this proposal together. I think it's a reasonable, a safe, and very optimistic plan to have activities which will draw people back down to our downtown core. You know, we had already, as a council, endorsed some of the recommendations from the grant committee, which gave them some resources to line up a whole bunch of activities. Those are being modified, just like a lot of us are modifying our plans. The downtown district is doing this as well, and there's still going to be able to be attractions to bring people down here. So I think this is good. Giving them this $25,000 now allows them to make the necessary purchases of the equipment and supplies so that they can continue to work on that. Allow us as a council to put the finishing touches on their proposal, and I expect that we will support it going forward. I like the fact that it includes areas of Market Square, it includes other parts of the entire downtown district, and that's important. At the same time, you know, we're working very hard with the Bay of Quinte Regional Marketing Board. The Mayor's Task Force on Marketing Belleville in COVID-19 days has met, and we've got some very good legwork that's being done by the BDI from a messaging point of view. I'm sorry, for the BQRMB, the Bay of Quinte Regional Marketing Board, from a messaging point of view, and everybody is on board, and we're looking at ways to leverage that. So going forward, I also want to stress, though, that we have more to the city of Belleville than just our downtown district, and there are going to be retailers and businesses in all sectors of the city that are going to be struggling. And so this is something that we're able to fund because of some of the activities that we've already been doing, and it's a good move going forward. So I thank everyone for their comments. I'll call the question. All in favor? Approves. Carried. Thank you. I've got two more items under correspondence, and they deal with petitions that I've received. The first petition is from residents in the Oak Ridge Boulevard area, and was submitted by Mr. Mark Soublier, and it has 25 signatures expressing concern regarding the high water levels in the Bell Creek area because of the beaver population there. And so I'm just going to ask the clerk, do I need a resolution to accept the petition, Mr. Clerk?
It would be best.
Okay, so if I can get a resolution to accept that petition, it came in writing and we're just receiving it. Moved by Councillor Culhane, seconded by Councillor Millette. I know, colleagues, you haven't had the benefit of seeing the petition, but it's just 25 residents in the area, as I've expressed. Anyone have any comments on that? Seeing none, Councillor McCaw, go ahead.
Thank you. Now we're going to have a vote to receive this, are
To
we?
receive the petition, that's all we're doing, is receiving it.
Okay, so I'll just go on the record now saying I won't receive it, so.
So you won't vote in favor of receiving. Okay, fine. All in favor? Opposed? The motion is passed. So the petition has been received. The second petition I received earlier today, and it comes from residents of the community of South Front Street and South Pinnacle Streets. There are 25 signatures who have concerns regarding the potential redevelopment or change in use of 45 South Front Street. And so we have, as I explained to the residents, we haven't received any applications for amendments to that facility. But nonetheless, I just think it's best we'll receive the petition. We'll have it on the record. I need a mover and a seconder to receive that petition. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Sanderson. Again, I apologize, my colleagues, you haven't seen a copy of the petition, but there are 25 names of people down in that area, and the motion on the floor is to receive it. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? It's carried. The petition's received. Thank you. Now we'll move into item number 8, Committee of the Whole. Motion to go into Committee of the Whole to hear and consider reports, passing of recommendations and resolutions with myself in the chair. Can I get moved by Councillor Culhane, seconded by Councillor Sanderson? All in favor, it's carried. And item number 8A1 is Refreshment Vehicles in Downtown Business Improvement Area request. The Director of Corporate Services, Clerks Report number DCS 2020-25. And the resolution is that pursuant to the Director of Corporate Services, Clerks Report number DCS 2020-25, the provision contained in Schedule 1 of Bylaw number 2006-140, a bylaw to license, regulate, and govern certain businesses, that prohibits refreshment vehicles from operating within the downtown business improvement area, be waived for Steak Machine, formerly known as Erlan Angelos, and the 116 Bistro food trucks, and that council's approval for a period ending no later than September 30th, 2020 be approved. Can I get it on the floor? Moved by Councillor Williams, seconded by Councillor Sanderson. Any discussion? The information is quite straightforward. Discussion on this item. All right, so seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you, and good luck to those two businesses as they deal with the summer. Item A2 is the item that Councillor McCaw and myself have a pecuniary interest and a conflict on. So I'm going to turn the meeting over to Councillor Culhane, who is here in council chambers with me. If you want to activate your microphone, Councillor Culhane, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Worship. So we'll begin with reports The agenda shall include under reports items that warrant individual attention from council. Item 8A1, refreshment vehicles in downtown business. Sorry. Oh, sorry. My apologies. 8A2, delegation of approval for encroachment agreements and waiving of application fees for downtown patios. Director, Engineering and Development Services report number DED-2020-07. The resolution reads that a bylaw be prepared for council's consideration to authorize delegation of approval for encroachment agreements to the Director of Engineering and Development Services or designate, and that fees for encroachment agreements for patios and for ramps that improve accessibility within the downtown be waived until such time as deemed appropriate by council. A mover, please. Councillor Kelly, Councillor Williams. Discussion? Councillor Carr and Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I asked for this report and recommendation to come forward last meeting. The Ontario government actually just came out and indicated that permit licensed establishments are able to set up a new patio or expand an existing patio without a Alcohol and Gaming Commission application or fee. And so this somewhat mirrors what the province is doing by allowing businesses, particularly in the downtown core, but across the city, to be able to expand and if needed, an encroachment agreement. The process before was rather cumbersome, and I had conversations with the Director of Engineering Development Services, and it made sense to have this delegated. Simply then it'll fast track any agreements that have to be made. I do have one question to the Director, if I may. It indicates in his report that the bylaw would come back to council for approval. And my question is just on process, that if we're if we're delegating authority to the director to sign off on the agreement, is there a necessity for a bylaw to come back? And if there is, does that slow down the process at all? Because I can imagine that if we approve this today in conjunction with what the province has announced with regards to liquor license, we're going to be having, and then the announcement today on patios being open as of Friday in our jurisdiction, I imagine that there's going to be lots of restaurants that are going to be scrambling to try to expand their patios as much as possible for physical distancing. And so I just want to be sure that we're not going to slow anything down by even having a bylaw come back for council.
Your questions to Mr. Ashton?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
So through you, it's the agreement that has to go through bylaw. So essentially the time saved, would be instead of the writing of the report and going through that process, the bylaw would come back. So for instance, if someone came this week to for a patio license, it would come back on the 22nd with a bylaw that could get executed. And then the timeline is shorter with the bylaw through clerk's office. So they would essentially have to prepare the bylaw and it would get placed on the next agenda, but no report. So that's sort of the mechanism we use, is to council to formally approve it through bylaw.
Okay, thank you.
Sir Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just to reemphasize the support that's needed here. I think restaurants is a great announcement today by the province. And what I've read so far, and right or wrong, that restaurants will only be allowed to open their patios. So I was in the impression before, when we first thought of this with Councillor Carr's direction, that restaurants would at least be allowed to have indoors 50%. We're hearing now that restaurants may not be able to have any capacity indoors. This is all outdoors. So I mirror the sentiment that we need to get this going as soon as we can. If we have to do bylaw, then so be it. But if there's a way around it, I prefer to see that approved today. But restaurants, in order for a lot of them to survive, will have to use patio space. And in some instances, I've talked to some restaurants where they're going to have to use big parts of their parking lot or parking spaces. And staff are already aware of this and know that they're going to have to deal with that. But if we have to come back to council before they can even open or have any revenue. I fear it's just more loss of revenue. So I'd just like to go perhaps through you, Madam Chair, to Matt McDonald. Is there any way that we can approve this today and suspend the rules of a bylaw, or is this the only way we're able to do it?
Through the chair to Councillor Williams and to council. So it's a tough question. The reality is the execution of a bylaw is the passing of a bylaw is the exercise of council's authority. Encroachment agreements or agreements of any nature have always had bylaws. It affords the city, so the corporation, a measure of protection. As we get into larger agreements, and generally the encroachment agreements we're talking about aren't typically patios. They're generally related to property and subdivisions, and solicitors on the other party's behalf requires a bylaw to be able to register on title land registry. Registry office will not register, be able to register clear title, so change title from the city or whoever, party A to party B without bylaw. That's always been the requirement, regardless of the delegated authority. Bylaw has always been required. I think between Director Ashton and myself, we can put our heads together and see if there's any way to expedite that for the temporary nature of a patio encroachment. The challenge we find is I'm very leery of putting the corporation in a position of risk in any manner, and in particular when we're looking at patios and we're putting people, residents in proximity to vehicles, which in some cases we have in the past had encroachment agreements for patios in parking spaces, so there's no hard barrier between cars and people. That's a concern for us from a liability perspective, simply for insurance and all of those things that you can think of. But I think Director Ashton and I can have a conversation about this to see what we can do to expedite that process.
Okay, and I think I understand the liability. I think the province also has that when they're suspending applications for liquor license, which would be could be very troublesome. But I think that's the error we're in. If I can have an assurance that restaurants today can plan to make applications, and I know of a couple of them that would be completely hampered until they would be able to get an increased patio space with having nothing indoors. If we can at least, I can be assured that staff can start an approval process that may come back to council, but it would allow us then an opportunity to examine it while allowing them to go forward. I guess what I'm looking for, Mr. McDonald, from you is that we can have a vote today on that aspect that would allow that to happen and still have that come back to council in 2 weeks so that we could finally approve it. But I think I'm just looking on the part of the business person who has a restaurant who still won't be able to open today because the rules state only in a patio space can you open, or Friday, sorry, that we're allowing them to move forward so that, I guess to my point, we're trying to self-preservation to a lot of these restaurants, as many as possible, and that we're really working as hard as we can as a council to ensure that all these places that pay a lot of taxes are having the best shot possible under these circumstances.
If I can, through the chair, I think certainly staff here are hearing your message, and I think we can certainly look at it. My understanding of the Alcohol and Gaming Commission's direction today isn't that there isn't a license required. The fee's been waived and the license isn't required to be submitted or displayed. It's that it will be it has to be shown upon request. So they're streamlining their process, no doubt about it, which will make it quicker. So I think certainly we can look at what we can do to make it faster, and whether that's that the delegated authority allows the director and the department to approve the use, the encroachment agreement, with the understanding that the agreement comes to council at the next meeting. Where that puts staff in a position where there there might be some hesitation is that if we approve an encroachment agreement and it comes to council and there are questions and or not support for that, and it's been operating for a week or the better part of 2 weeks between meetings, that could be a bit of a challenge. Those are the kind of issues that we may face, but I think there's the ability for us to work on them.
Okay, thank you.
Any further question or comment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion is. Your worship.
And I'm back. Thank you very much, Councillor Culhane. 8A3, Contract ENG 2020-913, Newberry Street Sanitary Trunk Sewer Repair, and it's in the Project Manager Report number ENG 2020-11. And the resolution is that the 2020 capital budget be amended to add $150,000 to the 2020 capital budget issue 20-1.073, Newberry Street Sanitary Sewer Repair from the Wastewater Reserve Fund, and that the tender submission from Cooney Excavating Limited for Contract ENG 2020-13, Newberry Street Sanitary Trunk Sewer Repair, be accepted in the amount of $246,102.30 plus HST of $31,993.30 for a total tender amount of $278,095.60, this being the lowest cost tender received, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the acceptance agreement on behalf of the corporation of the city of Belleville, and that the city clerk be authorized to affix the corporate seal. Can I get this on the floor? Moved by Councillor Culhane, seconded by Councillor McCaw. Any questions or discussion on this item? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. 8A4, Contract ENG 2020-16, Northeast Industrial Park Upgrades and Active Transportation, Phase 2A, Adam Street and University Avenue. And it's a project manager report number ENG 2020-13. The resolution is that the tender submission from Fitzgibbon Construction Limited be accepted for contract ENG 2020-16, Northeast Industrial Park Upgrades and Active Transportation Phase 2A, Adam Street and University Avenue project in the amount of $985,307.52 plus HST of $128,089.98 for a total tender amount of $1,113,397.50. This being the lowest cost tender amount of the lowest cost tender received, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the acceptance agreement on behalf of the corporation of the city of Belleville, and that the clerk be authorized to affix the corporate seal. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Any discussion? Councillor Thompson, do you want to activate your microphone? Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. So this particular project is just about $1 million. The total project is $2,419,890. And the second phase, and by the way, this is a project that's has been talked about for a long time, and it's great to see it's going to happen. Will in the estimation of the project manager for the second phase, will there be enough from that 2.419,890 to complete the second phase?
And the short answer to that is yes. Do you want anything to add to that, Director Ashton?
So we assume that it will be sufficient budget, but I guess you can never know for sure until you actually get the tenders coming in. So, but we assume that it will be.
I think in fairness, Councillor Thompson, the only things that really are going to affect it would be, for example, any delays because of the COVID-19 virus, where the contractor notifies us of some situations. And but we're not expecting this is a straightforward project. And as you said, it's from a long time ago. The last council dealt with it, and we're able to proceed with it now because we received funding from the federal and provincial government. So that's great news.
And second, do they feel fairly confident that we will be able to work with the railway people to have something start for next spring?
So the agreements with the railroad company, Director Ashton, how are we doing with those?
Yes, we attempt constant communication with them, but I guess they also have their own schedule. So we are persistent with pursuing those approvals. We hope that we will be able to proceed next spring, but until we get their sign off, we're never sure, but we do hope for next year.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else, Councillor Thompson?
That's it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else on this item? I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion's carried. And our gratitude to the provincial and federal governments for awarding us that funding. Item number 8A5 is the contract ENG 2020-08, Avondale Road and Holmes Road reconstruction. Senior Project Managers Report number ENG 2020-09. And the resolution is that the tender submission from Taggart Construction Limited be accepted for contract number ENG 2020-08, Avondale Road and Holmes Road reconstruction in the amount of $5,700,397 plus $741,051.61 HST for a total dollar amount of $6,441,448.61. This being the lowest cost tender received, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the acceptance agreement on behalf of the corporation of the city of Belleville, and that the clerk be authorized to affix the corporate seal, and that pursuant to report number ENG 2020-09, the 2020 capital budget be amended to transfer funding as outlined in attachment number 2. Mover and a seconder on this. Councillor Kelly and Councillor Carr. And this is certainly good news for the residents along the lunar landscape, also known as Avondale Road. I know they'll be very happy, and we're happy to proceed with this big project. Any discussion on it? All right, you know, and I think that one of the impacts of the COVID virus situation is that we're looking at this project may be completed over 2 seasons, so over 2 years, started this year and then completed in 2021. But it's high time that we got this this job done. I'm very, very proud. You know, a lot of us had promised that this was a priority, and we're able to now do it. And I certainly, we've gotten excellent pricing from all the companies involved, and we're very, very happy and looking forward to this. Motions on the floor. Oh, Councillor Thompson, you do want to say something?
Question on the connection on Holmes Road.
Mm-hmm.
Do the people have to connect at once, or what's their timeline for connecting on Holmes Road? I know Avondale is not a problem, but Holmes Road.
So that would be the citywide connection bylaw that we passed earlier this year. And I'll ask either the CAO or the director who wants to take a shot at this. The CAO is intimately knowledgeable about that bylaw because it's been his baby for a number of years. So Mr. Bove, do you want to speak about that?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Thompson, the bylaw will allow those residents on Holmes Road, I think there's about 18 residents, that they will be allowed to connect when they choose to connect. So it's not mandatory for them to connect. The sanitary sewer will be installed. There will be laterals provided to their property line, and then at such time as they choose to connect, they will have their own contractor bring it from the property line and do the necessary plumbing adjustments in their homes. So it's at their discretion when they connect.
Do they have a time limit?
No, I don't believe there's any time limit in the bylaw. There's certainly an advantage to connecting sooner. There is a connection charge that applies, and there is interest that applies to it. So certainly there's some benefit to connecting sooner rather than later.
And those people have been notified of the connection charge and taken it from there?
Yes, there was a public information center held, and they were advised of the charges that would apply and the details of what's going to happen with the road itself.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else? Councillor Carr, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. It's my understanding that that connections bylaw had a 10-year limit, and after the 10 years, the resident had to connect. So you had up until 10 years, and then you had to connect.
Yes, Councillor Carr, I believe you are correct. That did slip my mind. I think we did end up putting a 10-year timeframe in it, so it wouldn't drag on for too long.
Yeah, so just go back to Councillor Thompson's question then. They don't have to connect immediately. They have to connect at the end of 10 years. It's less expensive to connect the sooner you do on the interest charges.
That was the question I wanted, and to make sure that the public heard that. So there is a 10-year memorandum. Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Seeing no other comments, all in favor? Motion's carried. And we look forward to that project, especially the Avondale project starting. That's been a long time in coming. 8A6 is the TOS 2020-09 line clearing and tree trimming issue. General Manager, Transportation and Operations Services Report number GMTOS-2020-16. And the resolution is that the tender submission from Ontario Line Cleaning and Tree Experts, Inc. be accepted for contract number TOS 2020-09. Line clearing and tree trimming in the amount of $63,269.88 plus $8,225.08 HST for a total amount of $71,494.96. This being the lowest cost tender received, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the acceptance agreement on behalf of the corporation of the city of Belleville, and that the clerk be authorized to affix the corporate seal, and that pre-budget approval for the 2020 operating budget be authorized for tree maintenance contract work in the amount of $150,000. Can we get this motion on the floor, please? Moved by Councillor Sanderson, seconded by Councillor McCaw. Any questions or discussion on the item? Seeing none, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor? Motion's carried. 8A7 is the contract number Parks 2020-01 regarding design build for a new playground equipment in Parkdale Veterans Park. General Manager, Transportation and Operations Services Report number GMTOS 2020-17. And the resolution is that the request for proposal submission from New World Park Solutions, Inc., submission number 2 for project number 20-0510A be accepted for contract PRKS 2020-01 regard design build for new playground equipment at Parkdale Veterans Park in the amount of $174,830 plus $22,727.90 HST for a total amount of $197,557.90. This being the most qualified proposal received, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the acceptance agreement on behalf of the corporation of the city of Belleville, and the clerk be authorized to affix the corporate seal. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Culhane, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Any questions or discussion on this item? Councillor Culhane, you want to activate your microphone?
Thank
Go
you,
ahead.
Worship. Not a question, just a comment. It's a remarkable development, and I just I compliment Manager Reid and his staff in putting this all together.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to say anything on this? I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. 8A8, and I'm a little nervous because this is actually a 2-page resolution, just to show people at home. And so anybody watching this can go to the city website and see the agenda. And rather than have me read out this entire motion, I'm going to ask for a motion as read, moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor McCaw. So this is basically dealing with our blue box transition from companies and a full producer responsibility update. As I said, anybody who has questions, they can go and read it on the website. Motion has been made. Any discussion? Councillor Thompson, do you want to activate your microphone?
I just want to make a comment. This is a wonderful move. It's, when I sat in for a few meetings on behalf of Mike Graham during the last term, this was talked about it. It's taking our recyclable in the direction it should be, and putting it in the hands of the manufacturer, the people that produce all this stuff, rather than putting it in the hands of the taxpayer. And it's something that we've needed it done for a long time, and it's great to see it now in our hands, and it's going on from here. So
great, thank you. Councillor Millette, I've got you next. Do you want to activate your microphone? Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship. Comment as well. I'm going to support the motion wholeheartedly. It deserves 2 pages for the motion because this is a very complex issue. And at last winter's Rural Ontario Municipalities Association meeting, I attended a very informative session at that conference, wherein a group of municipalities that have experience in this and are further down the road than our area. And I might remind those watching or listening that there's more than just the city of Belleville. We have a group here, so it gets a little more complex in bringing all the parties together. But the one thing I want to say is that while this is an absolutely wonderful thing that is happening, that we're taking it out of the taxpayers' hands, the warning that came out of this, and I have some information on it, and I'm sure our people are well aware of these warnings as well. Welland, some of the areas down in southwestern Ontario are finding that the producers, once they're in charge, you're going to find that if they're making the rules, if they're paying the freight, they'll be making the rules. And some of the things that we have come to take for granted in our blue box recycling stream and the way we do it may in fact not just be as simple as taking the cardboard and the egg cartons to the curb along with the plastic water bottle. So there will be a little more involved to it, but that's not to take away from the absolute necessity to indeed bring this into the producer's hands. So just a word of caution that it is a complex file and it is well worth 2 pages on the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Millette. Councillor Sanderson, I saw you next. Do you want to activate your microphone? Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I had mentioned at our last council meeting that that the Quinte Waste Services Board that I sit on, we're having a strategic session, and we did that on May the 26th. And in attendance, we had both the Belleville General Manager of Environment, Perry DeCola, and his counterpart in Quinte West, Chris Angelo, as participants in that session, along with all of the communities that are served currently. So the actual time frame that gets assigned by the province will likely be influenced, I would say, by regional consideration. So we have certainly put forward that we want to be in the 2025 timeframe. And what that does for us is that our contract with the current supplier comes due or expires next year. So that allows us to put together an RFP for a 4-year proposal, which will hopefully attract some interest. And you know, the benefit for us is 2 things. We should end up with a cost-effective service provider, and it also provides us buffer through the transition as we move over to producer responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson, for serving on that board for us and representing council on it. And so this is good news. Seeing no one else wanting to speak on this item, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. And thank you for letting me not have to read the full 2 pages of the motion. While it's all important, I think people would have probably tuned out after a little bit. We'll move on to the consent portion of the agenda, where council may adopt consent items by one motion, but prior to consideration of such motion, members may request that specific items be removed from consideration under such motion, and council shall consider such items individually. So I'm going to go around the screen, my screen here on the computer, so I'll call on you, and if you can just give me a thumbs down if you have nothing, and if you do have something you want to pull, you can activate your microphone. I'll start with Councillor Kelly. Okay, Councillor Culhane. Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Williams.
8B3.
8B3, okay. Councillor Thompson.
No, thank you.
Councillor Carr.
No, thank you.
Councillor McCaw. Thank you. Councillor Millette. All right, a motion to the following agenda items be approved with the exception of 8B3. Moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Millette. All in favor? Carried. 8B3, Pop-Up Shops 2020, Economic and Strategic Initiatives Report Number ECDEV 2020-18. And the resolution is that pursuant to the Manager of Economic and Strategic Initiatives Report Number ECDEV 2020-18, Pop-Up Shops 2020, bylaws to approve and authorize the execution of license agreements 11, with each of the pop-up vendors being in number 11, be prepared for council's consideration. Moved by Councillor Williams, seconded by Councillor Carr. Discussion, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Your Worship. And generally, this is a great day for pop-ups. It's a great day to see what's going to happen down at West Wicks, COVID or not, and especially during COVID. Staff have been working incredibly hard. I have to give a lot of compliments to Ann Monroe and Karen Post, Mark Fleur, and a lot of others who have just been working hard to have not 4 vendors as last year, but 11. And that's pretty incredible. All of different varieties, from food trucks to artisans to clothing. And of course, having what I think is a success is having a water outfitter. So having SUP and kayak and canoe rental. So I think it's just an incredible achievement. I did want to ask Karen Post to come online just real quick. One of the concerns, of course, has been around COVID and policies. I know that staff have been working really hard to make sure this is going to be safe. I think that's really important. So I'd like to ask Karen to talk about some of those policies they're looking at. I know today the province approved gatherings up to 10, so that helps us a little bit. But Karen, can you just maybe talk a little bit about your COVID safe policies around the pop-up system?
Manager Post, if you want to activate your microphone. Welcome, go ahead.
Thank you, my pleasure. To everybody through Councillor Williams. Yeah, we've been working very closely with the health unit. We've revised the site plan for pop-ups to make sure that everybody stays physically distant. We have staffing in place that will make sure that all required COVID-19 protocols will be in place. So we're confident this is something that can go ahead safely.
Right, Councillor Williams.
Thank you. And yeah, I think we were down there even the other day doing a site tour a couple of weeks ago. There were already 40, 50 cars. I think what staff are prepared to do is utilize staff from other departments, I think Parks and Rec, to make sure that they are social distancing. When people go down, they're going to make sure they're spread out, that they know where to go. And I think depending on announcements today, they're talking about making sure picnic tables are spread out so people have places to go that is safe. So I think this is, again, I've mentioned this before, this is a make and break for pop-ups. We're really excited for no flooding, that this is a great location, that again, we're taking advantage of a bad situation in COVID and making sure there's some good coming out of it. Attraction to the waterfront, to downtown and Belleville. And I think we've stated this before, Your Worship, you've said it before. I know we want these people to make lots of money and be successful, as we do of all areas as we continue to build up the city. But this is a feather in Belleville's hat. There's not many communities doing pop-ups. We're one of the first, so that's a great news story, and hopefully it's very, very successful.
Right, thank you. Anyone else on this item? Councillor Kelly, go ahead. Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair, or Mayor. I just wanted to welcome David Pickett from Brick Oven Pizza Truck. He's back, and Jackie Gerald from the Golden Scoop. And as Councillor Williams touched on, a lot of commitment by some small businesses, and I just wanted to wish them well, and a nice variety this year down at Swicks Park. So it's going to be exciting for families to go, and reminding about social distancing, but mom and dad will have a chance to take the kids, or this might be a nice spot for a date as well. So good luck to all those with the pop-ups this summer.
All right. Seeing no one else, then I just, again, we're fortunate this year. Last year, Mother Nature was not kind to us, and we dealt with the flooding of the Bay of Quinte and Lake Ontario. This year, due to a number of reasons, including better management of the level of the lake, we are in a situation where we're able to look forward to a full season here in the location that we wanted to, and it's great. We do have a couple of those returning vendors that Councillor Kelly talked about, but we also have a number of new vendors that are coming in. Just very quickly, we have a number of food offerings, including Royal Haveli Indian food. We have the specialty hot dog cart. We have the Golden Scoop ice cream coming back, but we also have a coffee and beverage shop. We have a smoking redneck Southern barbecue food truck. We have another food truck, and then we have the brick oven pizza truck. And in addition to that, we also have Duret's chalk design and Duret's photography that'll be there. We have a clothing and accessory business that will be there. We have the artisan collective market being there offering their wares. And then we have the venture outfitters who, as Councillor Williams said, will be able to activate the water itself, not just come somewhere to look at it, but you can actually participate in and be involved in it. So those are great things. I also want to thank all of the staff of the city who have been working hard to set up all of the containers and the services to provide this. I'll be talking a little bit later about us having to have a level of patience and tolerance for a different season in terms of us being able to maintain our parks. But we will do everything we can, in particular for the pop-up locations, to ensure that that area is is clean and is the grass is well cut. And then we are working very hard on the protocols in place to ensure that the washrooms at West Wicks will be operational as soon as possible as well. So we're very excited about this year. I want to thank everyone that's involved in this again, and wish all the vendors a very successful year. This is the year that I think we will look back and be glad that we stuck at it. And as I said last year, it didn't quite work out that way, but it is our intention for all these vendors to do extremely well and to make lots and lots of money, so that they want to come back, and we then have a competitive situation where businesses are trying to get into it, and they're offering great services for our residents and visitors. And best of luck in the 2020 season. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. Council information items 8C. Council may adopt consent items by one motion, but prior to consideration of such motion, members may request that specific items be removed from consideration under such motion, and council shall consider items individually. I'll go around again, and I'll start the back way. If you just give me a thumbs down if you don't have anything, and if you do have something you want to get pulled, please activate your microphone. Councillor Millette. Councillor McCaw. Thank you. Councillor Carr.
8C 2A, please.
2A. Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
8C 2A also, and 8C 2B.
8C 2B. Yes, okay, thank you. Councillor Williams. Okay, thank you. Councillor Sanderson. Thank you. Councillor Culhane. Thank you. Councillor Kelly, you're ready to go again now. Okay, perfect. So that the following agenda items be received, save, and accept items 8C 2A and B. Moved by Councillor Culhane, seconded by Councillor Millette. All in favor, it's carried. 8C 2A is a request for provincial funding for rehabilitation facilities, and it is the April 16, 2020 resolution from the City of Cambridge, and we'll get this on the floor. So to support that resolution, moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Councillor Carr, this was your item.
Yes, thank you very much, and certainly would like to support this motion. It's looking for provincial funding for drug and addiction rehabilitation facilities, and we talked last week about some of the needs of our community, and certainly poverty being one, but mental health and drug addiction are the underlying factors in a lot of people's lives that then result in poverty, then result in unstable home environment and a place to live. And so I think given the fact that this is healthcare related and the focus on substance abuse, I think that, asking the province to put some funding in place. And like I said before, we have a very fragmented system. We have a lot of organizations that are doing their best, but we need a more continuum of care in the province of Ontario to truly tackle the root causes of homelessness and regular income, etc. And it all goes back to substance abuse and mental health. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on this item? Councillor Thompson.
I'm just going to echo on Councillor Carr's mental health is certainly an underlying issue in most municipalities, not just Belleville. So that's why I think it's got to go as a province to ask for some funding. You know, I connected with the Canadian Mental Health, which now is another name, but we have the homelessness, we have the drug addiction, and then along with that, we really don't have enough organizations, enough funding to deal with the drug addiction, which leads to other aspects in our community. So, you know, we need to be looking to our government to access more funding for mental health, and which again, as Councillor Carr says, leads into homelessness and issues with homes. And so I'm certainly going to support this motion to bring it to the province.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Anyone else on this? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion's carried. 8C2B, request all levels of government and municipalities adopt March the 17th as Essential Workers Day. And it's the May 26, 2020 resolution from the city of Brantford. Councillor Thompson's moving it, seconded by Councillor Kelly. Councillor Thompson, you've got the floor.
Yeah, just very quick, I think it's a great motion. We know there was been an awful lot of accent over the last 2 and 3 months about our essential workers. And we need to maybe, this is one day that every year now, we'll recognize them as the effort they put forward. And essential workers are very broad. It takes in an awful lot of people. And that day, we'll be able to celebrate the work that they do, not only because of the COVID-19, but all the other work they do on a regular basis. So I ask that you support this motion.
Great. Anyone else for discussion on this item? Councillor Kelly.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to touch on too what Councillor Thompson said, essential workers. We've seen the work of the folks that work in this line of work, whether it's EMS or at the hospital or long-term care or police or fire, throughout the past 3+ months, and cream of the crop. And I think I speak for everybody that we thank them. And on Essential Workers Day in March the 17th, it could give us another reason to toast one, because it's also St. Patrick's Day. So I just wanted to get that in.
Great. Leave it to you to remind us of that. Anyone else on this item? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Motion to rise and report. Moved by Councillor McCaw, seconded by Councillor Carr. All in favor, it's carried. Mr. McDonald, can I just confirm that 2020-106, that's the item that I had a conflict on, correct? Yeah, so I have a conflict on bylaw number 106 along with Councillor McCaw. So if I can ask Councillor Culhane to do first, second, and third readings of bylaw number 2020-106, which is a bylaw to authorize delegation for approval for encroachment agreements in the city of Belleville. So take it away, Councillor McCaw. I'm sorry, Councillor Culhane. I apologize. Councillor McCaw and I have a conflict, so we're out.
Third reading only?
First to second, and third.
First, second.
2020-106. So it's 2020-106. You can just call it. Pat. Yeah. First reading. First reading. Yeah.
Mover, seconder. Councillor Carr and Councillor Williams. All those in favor?
Gotta hold down your microphone.
All those in favor? And 2020-106, second reading of bylaws. Mover and seconder, Councillor Carr, Councillor Kelly. All those in favor? And that's 2020-106, a bylaw to authorize delegation of approval for encroachment agreements in the city of Belleville, third reading. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Carr, Councillor Williams. All those in favor?
Thank you very much, Councillor Culhane. So we'll deal with the other one. So first reading of bylaw number 2020-107, and if it's okay, I'll just do numbers: 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119, 120. Moved by Councillor Kelly, seconded by Councillor Millette. All in favor? Carried. Second reading of bylaws and discussion on bylaws number 2020-107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119, and 120. Moved by Councillor Sanderson, seconded by Councillor McCaw. Any discussion on any of those bylaws? All in favor? Carried. And third and final reading of bylaws number 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119, and 120. Moved by Councillor Culhane, seconded by Councillor McCaw. All in favor? It's carried. New business. So, a couple things that are going to have to be revised, because at 1 o'clock, the province made some announcements that are going to cause us to reconsider some things. But I want to first off by thanking all residents and city staff for all that they've been doing during these very unusual times. As we continue to maneuver our way through the restrictions in place due to COVID-19, I'd like to announce the following actions. All public and private events on city properties are to be canceled through to the end of July. So we had previously canceled them up to the end of June, and we have now canceled them until the end of July. Today's announcement by the province has affected our intentions for the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center, and we will make an announcement as soon as possible once we consider those items. Those items that we're talking about is that the province is going to release more information soon regarding phase 2, and our region is part of the phase 2, which hot off the press, we will allow certain relaxations as of 12:01 a.m. this Friday morning. So they include information coming on childcare, summer camps, training centers, public transit, and some post-secondary pilots. Phase 2 does allow us to see outdoor dine-in services at restaurants, bars, and other establishments, including patios, curbside parking lots, and adjacent properties. It allows us to see select personal and personal care services with the proper health and safety measures in place, including tattoo parlors, barbershops, hair salons, and beauty salons. It allows us to see the reactivation of shopping malls under existing restrictions, including food services reopening for takeout and outdoor dining only. It allows for tour and guide services such as bike and walking, bus and boat tours, as well as tastings and tours for wineries, breweries, and distilleries. It allows for water recreation facilities such as outdoor splash pads and wading pools, and all swimming pools. It allows beach access and additional camping at Ontario parks, camping at private campgrounds, and outdoor-only recreational facilities and training for outdoor team sports with limits to enable physical distancing. Again, we've heard already, it allows for drive-in and drive-through venues for theaters, concerts, animal attractions, and cultural appreciation, such as art installations and film and television production activities, as long as there are physical distancing. So this has just been recently announced, so we will have to take a look at how that impacts our plans for particularly the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center, and we will let the public know as soon as possible. City playgrounds, we'll have to take a look at the new changes, and then we'll advise the public in the next few hours about that. Currently, the George Street Boat Launch public washrooms are open, along with 4 sets of portable washrooms located at Bridge Street United Church, the Salvation Army Thrift Store, and the meal program on Pinnacle, the Grace Inn shelter, and the Gleaners Food Bank. Moving forward, we are hoping to work out a schedule to open more public washrooms as we develop the protocols and schedules to ensure proper sanitation. We will inform residents when this is in place. And I know that you know, the restrictions and people are looking forward to these summer activities, but we are understanding that summer this year is going to look a little bit differently than previous years. And I want to thank all residents for their cooperation during this unprecedented time. We're all in this together, and we will get through this together. Let's continue to see the kindness and compassion that we as a community have demonstrated throughout this entire pandemic. And while I'm on the topic of kindness and compassion, I also want to say that we as a community need patience and understanding. There are many people in our community that are doing remarkable work for the benefit of us all, including frontline employees and those in the private sector. I ask for this patience with our municipal facilities and a staff that are dealing with it as we work hard to reduce costs during this unusual time. I have been mentioning in my regular Facebook video messages about the fact that our outdoor operations staff summer complement this year has been reduced by 2/3 of the people we would normally have. And this means that they may not be able to respond as they have in previous years. So I ask residents to keep this in mind when they see grass that perhaps needs to be cut and other maintenance around the city. It will get done, maybe just not as quickly as in previous years. But as I said, we are all in this together and we are doing the very best that we can as we go there. Colleagues, does anyone else have any items of new business they'd like to raise? Councillor Millette, I'll start with you, and then I see Councillor Thompson and Councillor Sanderson. Councillor Millette.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Mr. McDonald. Regarding Councillor Kelly earlier in the meeting mentioned the work of, I believe, the mayor's task force, as he referred to it, and working with something to do with the downtown. Now, I recall the mayor bringing this up earlier some weeks ago that he was going to establish this. This just reminded me when Councillor Kelly spoke of it, and I just have a few questions for the clerk. Then, who is on the task force? What's the process to establish it, and do we have a mandate for this? And because Councillor Kelly mentioned that it would work downtown, but is there a broader business mandate to it? And just how was it established? I mean, we didn't have anything come before council to develop what is essentially, I guess, would be an ad hoc committee of council. But if you could just outline those questions.
Yeah, before I call on the clerk to do that, Councillor Millette, actually you were notified of that in an email that I sent to all of council, letting you know that I'd be setting it, and I actually stated out the sections of the procedural bylaw which permitted it. And if you just give me a second, I will pull the appropriate section so I can quote it.
Yeah, I'm not hung up on the procedure so much as this is the first I'd heard that it had been actually formed and who was on it and what they were doing. So
yeah, so section 9.2 of the procedural bylaw states that the mayor or council may from time to time establish ad hoc committees consisting of such members as council may determine to take up a specific task or assignment where the terms of such committee is limited to the time required to complete the specific task or assignment. And so, as I said in that email, I had struck that task force. We will be reporting to council when the work is done. The title of it is the Mayor's Task Force on Marketing in COVID-19 Times. If you would have contacted me before, I could have given you all this information.
Well,
but that's the process that we're at, and that's where we are. So.
Councillor Kelly reminded me that I'd heard of it weeks ago. Yes, I did see your email, but I hadn't heard it that it had been formed, it had been meeting, or anything was happening. That's all that was.
Okay. Anyone else for new business? I'm sorry, I have Councillor Thompson next on the list.
I still didn't get my question answered.
I provided you the response. That's the information you have.
No,
Councillor Thompson, you have the floor.
on the committee.
Yeah, Councillor Thompson, you have the floor.
Just one question. Couple of 3 weeks ago, we had a bit of a heat wave, and I had a couple people call me about the cooling room. Now, because of the COVID-19, has there been any direction by the emergency committee meeting, or who's going to be the direction so I can get back to these people? And of course, it's going to be different now with the COVID-19. So have we had any thoughts on a cooling room if we do get some hot spells?
Good question, Councillor Thompson. I'm going to ask CEO Bove to talk about that process. That's been referred to the CEO and the fire chief as the leaders of the emergency control group. Mr. Bove.
Through you to Councillor Thompson, Your Worship, the issue of the cooling center did come up during that last heat wave. And so we've been looking at how we may go about providing a room that will assist those individuals that maybe need to find a respite from the heat. Obviously with COVID, the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center is closed, the library is closed. Those were our two main cooling centers that we typically use. We're still in the process of looking at what we can do. We'll try to find another location that will work at least on a temporary basis until we may be able to open up those city facilities, hopefully later for heat that we'll likely get in July and August.
And just, if I can just, before Councillor Thompson, I can just tell you that as part of the announcement by the province today at 1 o'clock, effective Friday at 12:01 a.m., the province will increase the limit on social gatherings from 5 to 10 people across the province. And so that was one of the biggest concerns we had with respect to the cooling center previously, as well as the fact that our municipal buildings were closed. And so this information is going to be considered by staff, and it's our intention to be able to provide those cooling centers as we have in previous years.
Yeah, and that's really all I wanted, to be able to inform these two inquiries that we are working towards something, because we really never know. It could turn very hot tomorrow or next week. So as long as we're making some provisions that we do get in a case that we be able to announce to people that we are working towards, and we will have a cooling room sometime in the very near future. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Councillor Sanderson, I got you next in the list.
Thank you, Your Worship. Two items I wanted to bring up under new business. One is long-term health care. And there's been a lot of media coverage and focus, certainly from the provincial and the federal government, on long-term care since the COVID outbreak. That locally, we've got two excellent publicly managed facilities in Hastings Manor and in Centennial Manor. And I'm certainly proud of the staff and the management team who provide excellent care to our residents there. And along with Councillors Culhane, McCaw, and Kelly, I serve on the Hastings County Long-Term Care Committee. And what may not be well known in the community, and I think partly because of our own stalled budget setting process, is that during the 2020 long-term care budget deliberations, which was set prior to the COVID outbreak, the budget that was actually brought forward to the long-term care committee was dramatically increased. So this was a first. It hadn't happened before, I believe, where the budget that was being proposed was actually increased during a committee review. And so during those 2020 budget deliberations, and in support of the residents and the staff at Hastings Manor and Centennial Manor, I made the motion to increase the budget by adjusting the level of personal care to 3 hours per resident. Now, it was debated and enthusiastically supported by all. And so what that translated to, or what that meant, was that for Hastings Manor, we took 19 part-time personal support workers and we moved them to full-time. We added 1 full-time personal support worker. We took 1 part-time RPN and moved that person to full-time. And we also added 6 hours per week for personal support work, behavioral support. So that was what happened at Hastings Manor. In Centennial Manor, we added 1 full-time personal support worker, and we added 2 part-time personal support worker. So between the two facilities for 2020, we added 20,000 hours of care. And so this represents a huge investment in the level of residential care and staff that supports and actually takes us up to the 75% mark against the 4 hours that the province is looking or recommending. So we've actually asked the province to provide the funding to get us the other 25% of the way there. So I would expect that when it's all said and done, we would be in the top quartile of long-term care homes in the province. And to that end, I also asked that a report come forward to the committee to benchmark us so that we can see where we stand and what work is left to be done. So I just wanted to share that with the group because I know that there's been some, for lack of a better word, misinformation circulating, and I just wanted to share that with not only council but the public at large. The second item I want to touch on is public transit. So last week was our first week of in-house mobility, and the calls have been fairly steady. We've got a limit of 2 passengers on each trip, and the ridership for the first week averaged about 18. So 95% of those passengers are medical and predominantly dialysis, and the remainder are associated with shopping trips. So in terms of staffing, we have got 1 dispatcher in place, and we're conducting telephone interviews this coming Thursday, hopefully to secure that 2nd position. So that's it for mobility. On conventional transit, we actually have increased the passenger load. We did this a week or so ago from 10 to 20, and we've actually introduced a limited fixed route service as well. So as a result of that, what we've seen in the space of 1 week is that basically ridership, which is still free, has actually doubled. And we were averaging 780 per day last week. And again, just for information, roughly a 60-40 split between those individuals that are going shopping and those that are heading off to work. So that's it for me. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And again, today's announcement from the province at 1 o'clock today references public transit, with more information coming this week. So as soon as we get that, we will deal with it. Anyone else have items for new business? Councillor Williams and then Councillor Carr.
Thank you, and through your worship. This week's been a hard week across the globe when it comes to anti-racism and anti-discrimination in the light of George Floyd. And in this region in the last week, we've had actually 2 protests attended by thousands. One was in Picton and a Black Lives Matter protest in Belleville last night in front of City Hall. I know that our inclusion committee has not been able to meet because of COVID, and I know that they hopefully will be able to schedule to meet shortly. I'm asking that the inclusion committee do a couple of things. One is I know that they are looking at it. They have a strategic plan for that committee, and I'd like them to look at all of city policies around anti-discrimination and anti-racism, and anything that that we can look at as a whole of the city to do better, and as a whole within our community. Second thing is that I'd ask that we really look at those policies around staff as well, for our own staff for the city, making sure that we're looking over those with probably a little bit more light than we have before, but just making sure that we have a fully inclusive city and municipality. Before council, I was part of Bay Quinte Living, and we founded the first Bay Quinte immigration portal. And it was a great thing because for the first time, we were able to talk about the region of how everyone around the region is important, how every color and every minority and everyone that we want in order for our city to grow is important and is vital to the success of this region. And I say this as a councillor with white privilege, around a table of councillors of white privilege, that we have to really start listening more to our constituents. I've spent a lot of time on the phone and on emails and on Facebook and Instagram this week with a lot of constituents who are of minority and who are Black and who are saying they are afraid and that they have not seen, perhaps more publicly, the things they need to see and hear from our municipality and from our region, that we are inclusive, that we have safety on top of mind, and that they are included within our region. And I just want the inclusion committee to just overlook those and look at them, and that as a city, we can make a statement from the inclusion committee on behalf of the inclusion committee that maintains that we are safe, that we include everyone around the city and the region, and that we are a city that welcomes everyone. And I think that's really important. And I know that a lot of these constituents have just crazy stories, from not being served at certain patrons across the city to having awful things said to them, and symbols that we may, as white privileged individuals, think is okay, but means a whole different thing to them. And I think that's really important, that we continue to monitor that, move forward, and do what we want to do, I know, as all of council, which is to be an absolute welcoming, inclusive city and region. And I think the inclusion committee hopefully can tackle that a little bit more as it continues to do the work it's doing.
Right, thank you. We will forward that to the inclusion committee. And of course, we all do more than just talk about this. I know Councillor Kelly and myself, we were president and provided support to the Black Lives Matters vigil last night. It was a very peaceful event. People were practicing social distancing and being very careful, but there were a lot of stories that were shared with a very large crowd. So that was very nice to see, and I was proud of how our community had come together for that. Councillor Carr.
Thank you. I just got 3 quick items. I just want to say thank you to our IT department, city clerk, director of engineering development services, and the manager of policy planning for facilitating our first full planning advisory committee meeting where we had public participation. It was a long meeting. I'd also like to thank committee members too. It was about 3 hours, but we did do it, and we were able to move some applications through to the next stage. And so I just wanted to say thank you for those efforts. Staff do a lot of work behind the scenes to facilitate meetings, to make them run smoothly, but they don't always get the recognition. And given that that was a first, I just wanted to publicly say thank you for that. The second item is we have our operating budget on July 6th. And if I could, through you to Director Haynes, ask when the budget will be released to council for review.
I believe you got that information at the last council meeting in Councillor Sanderson's information. Councillor Sanderson, do you recall the date that you mentioned that the budget will be in the hands of council?
Yeah,
2 weekends before the meeting?
June 25th.
Okay. Thank
you. And then the last thing that I just wanted to ask is I was wondering if we could maintain our regular council meeting schedule and time. It has fluctuated between 2 and 4 since COVID. I'm not certain as to why. We're all busy with other responsibilities, and schedule consistency would certainly be appreciated. That's all we've got there.
Okay. Anyone else for new business? Just the last item that, as we talked about, our committees are starting to get reactivated and ramp up, and certainly we will have a heavy schedule as council for the months of July and August as we deal with the backlog of information. We tried to deal with urgent and essential items at these meetings during this declaration of emergency, and we will see how the group limits have changed in order to look at our next meeting on, I think it's June the 22nd. So hopefully we can have an in-person meeting. There are no motions today. Anyone with notices of motion? Councillor Culhane, you want to activate your microphone and go ahead?
Thank you, Worship. I had the pleasure of knowing both Jack and Bernice Parrott, and this community benefits constantly from their legacy, the Parrott Foundation. Recently, a deeply valued local organization, the Sea Cadets, came to council with an urgent request for $50,000. They had lost their dock and had infrastructure issues pursuant to that. That request could not be granted because it was a capital request. And the outlook for that organization was rather grim. I'm delighted to recognize and thank the Parrot Foundation for their donation of $40,000 to the cadets. And that money, coupled with money from bottle donations, has enabled the group to meet their goal. They do wonderful work in this community. So good for them, and thank you to the Parrots.
So, Councillor, I don't interrupt. Right now, we're under notice of motion, so I think you're under announcements, and that's fine. Let me no problem. That it was a very good announcement. We'll get to that in 1 second. Anyone else for notice of motions before we just deal with it? You have a notice of motion? Okay, let's deal with your notice of motion then. It's okay.
We're all familiar with Rona Rustage, the curator of Glenmore House. I would like to bring a notice of motion to grant Rona, who has put in her retirement date, the status of Professor Emerita. This is an honorary title, unpaid, that would both recognize her invaluable contribution to the development of this magnificent museum and allow her status to continue to provide assistance to the staff with future projects. I've provided Mr. McDonald with the full details of her qualifications for this honor and asked that those details be provided to council for the next council meeting when I could bring forward a formal motion.
Good. Thank you very much. So the information is in writing. It's been submitted to the clerk, and we will deal with it at the next meeting on June 22nd. Anyone else for notice of motions? Seeing none, we will move to announcements. Councillor Culhane, you made an excellent announcement about the Parrots and the Parrot Foundation and the Navy League. Do you have any other announcements that you'd like to make?
No, and I'm sure you wouldn't like me to repeat that one.
No,
so.
we're good. We're good ones.
Thank you.
Anyone else for announcements? We're now on the announcements portion. All right, well, I just have a couple. So I'd like to begin by proclaiming the month of June as Pride Month in the city of Belleville. The Pride flag is hanging at the Quinte Sports and Wellness Center, and I had the pleasure of raising it this past Friday with John Ross Parks, who is the Pride Committee Chair, as well as fellow councillors Culhane, Sanderson, and Thompson. It's disappointing that we all can't gather together to celebrate this important event that gathers hundreds of people at Zwick's Parks every year. However, we can still show our virtual support throughout the month. And I'd also like to apologize to John Ross Parks, the media, and those watching the event on Facebook Live for the unfortunate delay in the starting of the event. No disrespect was meant, and we value the diversity and tolerance of our community and what celebrating Pride Month represents. Let's also remember that June is Recreation and Parks Month, as well as National Safety Week is the week of June 6th to 13th, and June is Seniors Month. We issue these proclamations to remind citizens of the benefits of enjoying recreation and parks for people's physical, social, and emotional health. This June may be different from other years as people practice safe physical distancing and COVID-19 restrictions, but the City of Belleville's Recreation, Culture, and Community Service Department wants Belleville residents to know that it still is a month to be celebrated. As the warmer weather has arrived, programming staff are working hard to prepare a calendar of activities with COVID-19 measures in place and which residents can safely participate in this month. As I stated, June the 6th to the 13th is National Water Safety Week, and there are numerous water safety tips and activities. These are in addition to the weekly Water Safety Wednesday activities for everyone to review to help you stay safe in, on, and around the water. The theme for this year's Seniors Month is Stay Safe, Stay in Touch, and recognizes our seniors and the wonderful contributions they make to our community. The recreation staff wants to remind Belleville seniors the 5th edition of Belleville's 50+ Center newsletter, sent out electronically every 2 weeks, is set to release on this past Friday. If you are not yet on their mailing list and have not received it, please email your request to rccsgeneral@belleville.ca. I'd also like to thank the organizers of the Black Lives Matter March and Vigil last night for the peaceful event that occurred and the steps they took to minimize health concerns. I was able to see very good social distancing, and the fact that virtually everyone in attendance was wearing masks is something I am proud of. I would like to thank Inspector Chris Berry and the members of the Belleville Police Services for escorting the march and ensuring everyone's safety. Events around the world in the past 2 weeks have been very concerning, and I'm proud that Belleville counts its voice in the equal treatment of all people. Over the next 2 weeks until our next council meeting, many of our students in our city will be planning for a very different graduation than in years past. On behalf of council and the city, we want to extend our congratulations to each student for their achievements during this unusual year. You, your parents, and families, along with faculty and staff, should be proud. We are proud of you and know that even though we will not be able to attend, we congratulate you all on this achievement. Please accept our best wishes for your future, whatever you do, and know that we always welcome you back wherever your future takes you. And with that, I will call for a confirmatory bylaw, that bylaw number 2020-121, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on June the 8th, 2020, be read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 8th day of June, 2020. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Kelly and Councillor Sanderson. All in favor? It's carried. A motion to adjourn, moved by Councillor Carr, seconded by Councillor Millette. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.